That was what my column was about this week. I was talking about the fact in my column that BJ Penn has been so mellow and easygoing, and I said I don't think it's because he's mature like he's trying to say. I think it's because he's playing a psychological game with Nick Diaz, letting he be the mellow fellow, and Diaz is all burning and getting all the heat around him. And I think he was just trying to play Nick. Do you think it would be successful trying to do that against a guy like Diaz?
I don't know. I think it's everybody knows what to expect with the Diaz brothers, and. They sell fights well. I mean, everyone's excited about this fight, and unfortunately this card's had some bad luck, and obviously the main event fell through, but I think this one's going to live up to his hype. I mean, everyone loves a story, and we're all talking about it right now, so they're doing something right.
Dan Hardy and Frank Trigg here with us, Steve Cofield, Kevin Ioli. Dan and Frank both, from a fighter's perspective, Nick Diaz is a guy that's been out of the UFC for 6 years, hasn't done a lot of media, and yet this week he's clearly been the star of the show. Dana White talks about the power of the UFC and all the promotion, and yet this guy wasn't promoted by the UFC, and he's clearly the big star. What does that say?
I don't know. I think the fans are aware of the fighters regardless of where they're fighting. I mean, obviously Nick's not been fighting for the UFC for a long time, but he's had some great performances. I mean, the most impressive for me was his win over Paul Daly, who's one of my teammates, and I know how tough Paul is. And that was a big win for him. It was a first round stoppage, and people are aware of that kind of stuff. I mean, MMA is huge now, and even outside of the UFC, people are looking to see what's going on.
Doesn't it also say, and Trigg experienced this, becoming a rival of Matt Hughes, and obviously you've worked it, that no matter what the nice guys around the UFC say, I don't want to fake it to a certain extent, I don't want to be a bad guy, you're kind of stupid if you're not a little bit of a bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, to be hard, I don't want to be too harsh, because some guys just don't have it, but
yeah.
You have to have a little of it, because look at how it works for the guys who do that.
Well, look at all the guys there's something to be said about the guys that don't talk. You had your Chuck Liddells and your Randy Coutures that never said anything. They just went out there and they fought and beat guys up, and that was respectable. And you had 50% of the people loved them, 50% of the people hated them, but everybody went to watch them. And you have the other half. You have the Tito Ortizes and the Frank Triggs and and the Nick Diaz or take Diaz out of it, but we're talk all the time and sell a fight because we got to sell. Then you put Diaz in there who sells a fight without ever talking. He never does anything.
Just by snarling.
But he's still, you kind of want to hate the kid. Like, you kind of want to get after him. You kind of want to get in his grill. But you can't help it but go, as a fighter, at least I don't know, Dan may disagree, I respect him because he doesn't change his mind, he doesn't change his game, and he is always going to thumb himself off and flip off the authority. He is always going to go against the stream. And he wins even though he's doing it. And for as much as you want to go, whatever the powers that be, the first time he loses 2 in a row, he's out. The first time that he does something bad, he's out. The first time he does this, he's out. The first time he doesn't show up at press conferences, he's a co-main event. Well, then, however it got drawn out, the stars, the guys,
he's back.
All of a sudden, he's the guy. You're looking at it, and you're going, the whole card is sold off of Diaz. Like, what the heck just happened? I mean, it was supposed to be BJ Penn was supposed to be selling this thing. What happened? Well, that's just how it works out. And really, sometimes by not saying anything, just snarling is better for anything else.
Steve, I guess the thing that I would say, and Dan, you've had a personality and you kind of bring something different to the cage that a lot of guys don't. But isn't it important to be yourself? Chael Sonnen is himself. He plays a character. He's a wrestler, a pro wrestler, but, he plays himself. You can't be something you're not. I don't think you could get away with the Nick Diaz act, but your act plays very well for you.
Yeah, well, I always like to poke fun at people with a smile on my face, and I think I think people became aware of that in the build to the Marcus Davis fight. I'm not the guy that's angry at everybody, and I wouldn't say something disrespectful to somebody unless I intended to disrespect them. I mean, the build up to the Chris Lytle fight, I've got nothing but respect for the guy, nothing but good things to say about him. So I wouldn't want to fabricate something because the fans can see through it. But at the same time, some of these people in this sport are really easy to dislike, and I don't mind telling them.
Yeah. By the way, while we're at it. Fellow Brit, have you guys been watching Tough? Bisping took it to a new level this week. Yeah. I think Miller's having trouble dealing with it on the show. He's trying to poke back, but now he's actually getting the unflappable Jason Miller to crack a little bit.
Bisping's an interesting guy. He's got many levels to his personality.
Is he? I mean, he's dialing it up, but what do you know him? So I mean, is he going way overboard, or is that about the way he is, where he's a ball buster all the time?
That's pretty much how he is all the time, if I'm honest. I mean, I knew Mike from way before we both started fighting MMA, and he's always been like that. Obviously, I think he raises his game a little bit when he's up against somebody like Jason Miller, but that's Mike Bisping for you. Love him or hate him, he's always going to be himself.
So we're out here at Mandalay Bay, UFC 137, right around the corner. You got Penn and Diaz going at it, kind of, two villains, and at different points in their career. I think Nick's the bigger villain right now. So that fight itself, and we're talking to Dan Hardy here on the Jewelers of Las Vegas MMA Insiders show. The fight itself, how does it break down for you? Because Diaz has given a lot of people trouble, but you have to look at the kind of people he's beaten and say, you know what, they weren't BJ Penn.
Yeah, I'm really on the fence with this fight. My head says Nick Diaz is going to take it just because of his tenacity and his reach, and he wants to make a fight out of it. I think the advantage for BJ is that it's a 3-round fight and not 5 rounds. I think over 5 rounds I would favour Nick Diaz heavily, but over 3 rounds BJ could quite easily keep up with him for those 3 rounds and outwork him and catch him with something. I mean, the guy's a wizard on the ground, and he's probably one of the best boxers in the sport as well. So. It's interesting.
Who's the better boxer? Because you have pretty good boxing. Obviously, you have power in your hands. You understand that you have to throw both the jab and the strong hand. A lot of guys don't do that. Who's the better boxer in your mind?
Technically, I would say BJ is. I think he's got the technical advantage. Straight boxing, traditional boxing, without a doubt. I think BJ, but Nick's got that style that he peppers you constantly. He puts you under a lot of pressure, and he creates openings because of the amount of punches that he throws.
Dan, I love you now because you've been backing up everything I've been saying for the last couple of weeks.
I love it. You agree with me, so you must be a good guy.
I don't know if he's a good guy or not. He's a genius, though. We know how smart he is. But I've been saying all along, I think BJ Penn has the best boxing in MMA. I mean, technically, just the way he puts his punches together, he's got a terrific jab. I look at the difference in this fight. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight. I really do. Neither guy kicks a heck of a lot. I think BJ's got the better wrestling, but I don't know that either guy really wants to test the ground game. I think it's going to be a striking match, and I guess the question would be, if Nick Diaz goes to the body hard on BJ and kind of works the body, and he's a good body puncher, does he have the conditioning to fight through that and be able to go on in a fight where he hasn't gotten hit to the body a lot before?
I don't know. I mean, he does seem to have rededicated himself, and he looks in great shape. So maybe I don't know. I mean, I just think that there aren't many people that could keep up with Nick Diaz's pace and that volume of punches, regardless of whether you're getting hurt by them or not. Eventually it's gonna make you make a mistake. It's gonna create an opening, and he's gonna capitalize. And my concern is that BJ can't keep up with his hands.
I want to talk about Roy Nelson. We'll start with Trig first because you've been here in Vegas forever. Roy obviously is a native of Vegas. What's your opinion of Roy, where he was, where he is now? Obviously, it seemed like, kind of back against the wall after the last fight. It's calmed down since then. Dana was throwing out what looked like was going to be an ultimatum in their future conversations. So what's your opinion of Roy and where he is right now, especially with the conditioning?
Well, I kind of had Roy and Frank Mir kind of in the same boat, where tremendously athletic, amazingly technical, incredibly cerebral fighters, but both lazy as all hell. And they just didn't want to train because they're better than everybody else that's in their market. Everybody else, they're the huge fish in this really semi-sized lake, and they're killing everybody. It's like, well, why the hell do I need to train? I can just use my technique and my cerebral ability and beat everybody up. Well, like Frank, Roy ran into a lot of walls, and one of the walls was Frank Mir, where Frank just got smart and he trained, and Roy really couldn't run through him, even though, really, if you look at it on paper, they were really, really close. That fight was not as close as it should have been. Roy got smart, started training, and Dan's in his corner, and Dan said he lost a bunch of weight. He had the fat suit on, some clothes on, and he did a great gimmick at the weigh-ins tonight, but did not really show his true self because he's a lot smaller, he's a lot more in shape than he was. The gut's a little small. No, he's not shredded. Okay, I'm not getting. Okay, he's not going to have it. He's not looking like Terrell Owens out there running routes. It's not going to happen. But this guy's a lot better shape than he was. Tell me if I'm wrong. Dan was like 245 after practice, 250. So he's a lot smaller. He used to be, had to cut weight to make 265. For a guy like Roy, who's that good technically, who's that smart as he is naturally, and then make him get in cardiovascular shape, that makes him a way better fighter. And I'm now kind of nervous for Crow Cop because I love Crow Cop, especially from the Pride days. Being able to commentate on Crow Cop for a ton of years made it huge for me to okay, I want to see this old guy go out. And this is probably gonna be Crow Cop's last fight. I want to see him knock out Roy, then walk away from the sport and be like, I'm done. It's probably not going to happen now because Roy's in shape, and an in shape Roy is very dangerous because you can't knock him out. Frank Mir hit him with 75 of the best punches I think he's ever thrown at anybody in his life, and Roy was like, thanks, may I have another? Thanks, may I have another? And
Roy
kept coming.
Good chin.
And he's got great wrestling, and then, his jiu-jitsu's not a great technical jiu-jitsu from like a BJ Penn standpoint, but from a heavyweight standpoint, he's overly flexible, incredibly strong, and not scared to rip something out of your body. So that's very dangerous for a guy that, like Crow Cop, who gets on top. Say he knocks Roy down, he hits him with a leg kick or a head kick, and kind of puts him out. He's kind of loopy. Roy gets a hold of an arm, rolls up underneath, all of a sudden hits an arm bar, and just by natural ability extends his hips. Crow Cop's going home with half an arm. It's not like, oh, he's going to be in a brace and have a cast on. Mm-hmm. He's going to have pins and needles in there. They're going to have to go in and do major surgery because Roy has that ability. And in shape, Roy Nelson's very scary. He's very scary. He's come a long way. Now, I would love to say, because Dan's sitting across from me, that it's because Dan showed up in town, and that's the reason why he's getting in shape. But the reality of it is that when you get your back put against the wall as an athlete, you tend to step up to your best game. And we haven't seen Roy Nelson's best game yet.
So Dan, he finally did it? He finally did it.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
I think
because God knows, Kevin and I talked to Roy last week. He like, for some reason, he won't say. He'll never tell you that. Yeah, you know what? I really did it. Like, I got down to 245. I finally got myself in shape.
No, Frank's right, but he's, this is the first time I think he really feels like his back's against the wall, and I think this is the first time we're going to see him really go out there to perform. I mean, technical ability is on a whole different level to Crow Cop when it comes to the grappling and the jiu-jitsu. And now, obviously, with him being in better shape, I think the octagon's going to be a very small place for Crow Cop when the fight comes around. I don't think he's be able to get away from him.
Kevin, you were making by the way, I just hit publish on the video to put the pics up that we did earlier today. You really like Crow Cop. Well, you didn't really like him, but you liked some value this morning.
I did?
A little bit. Oh, now he's all confused.
I picked Roy Nelson.
But you were making a case. You're making a case for that Crow Cop could be dangerous. Said he's focused. He's arguing like hell with you. Oh, I'm going to make you watch this video.
I'm going to watch a video because that's not what I said.
That's what you said. Don't, now that Dan's here, now it's like, oh, I love Roy.
I would say it right to it. I would say if I thought he was going to lose, I'd say it right to his face. I'm not worried about that. But I think Roy wins the fight, and I thought all along. I guess what I was saying was I was arguing with your comment that you said you didn't see the passion in him, and I said I see the passion in Crow Cop this week. I think he's been a passionate guy, and you're seeing that. So my wife is calling me now. I guess she doesn't know.
Even she knows that you screwed up on that video. See?
What do you think, Dan? To me, I think the edge has been taken off of Crow Cop, and for the last 3 fights I've heard, I'm focused now. I'm in shape. I'm healthy. I think it's like screwing with him mentally that he's not as stoic as he used to be.
I certainly don't think he's as dangerous as he was in his Pride days, and I think everyone agrees on that. But there has been a lot of hints this week about this being his last fight, and that completely changes everything for me. I mean, when I stepped in against Chris Lytle, I knew it was going to be a good fight, but as soon as I found out it was his retirement fight, I knew that he was going to give it everything he's got, because that's his last 15 minutes. And I think, if Crow Cop's serious about retiring after this fight, this is going to be the most dangerous he's been in probably the past 5 years.
All right.